Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome back to day 2 of the K-12 Summer Zoom Academy. We hope everyone enjoyed our Teach Anywhere, Learn Anywhere, and Connect Anywhere panels yesterday. If you didn't have a chance to watch those or maybe had to drop off early, we are going to make those available for you to watch on demand starting next week. If you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today's focus is on live training, and this training in particular is for school leaders and staff. We will be joined today by some educators from Zoom, as well as ASU Digital Prep or Prep Digital Academy. At the end of the training today, you will be eligible to take an assessment and earn a Zoom Summer Academy badge and certificate, and we'll be able to share a few more details about that shortly. A few quick housekeeping items that I'd like to share with you. So again, we are recording today's session. So again, if you do have to leave early or you wanted to share or go back to the recording, you will have access to the recording again early next week. So be on the lookout for that. We'll send you the link to the recording. Please go ahead and visit the Zoom Academy platform lounges later today or after the training. There's some social groups that are open and they're really great for networking or asking questions. We have some Zoom staff that will be in there answering additional questions. But if you're looking for a way to connect or share ideas, that's a great place to go. You can also visit the Zoom Academy store. So by attending today's training, you are eligible to go take a look at the Zoom store. If there's any swag that you might be interested in, you might want to take a look there. And then as we go through the content, we will be having a few breaks throughout. I think most of our breaks are about 10 minutes. We might have a 5-minute break in there somewhere just to break up the content, give everyone a chance to stretch their legs, go get a glass of water, go to the bathroom if they need to. But we are intending to train for the full 3 hours. So we do want to break it up and make sure you have time to kind of stretch and take a quick break from the screen. I want to do a quick round of introductions as we go ahead and get started. So presenting today will be myself, my name's Kristen, as well as Giselle from the Zoom team. And then joining us from ASU, we have a few people here. Let me just get their intros up real quick. All right, so presenting from ASU Prep, and they are a K-12 network, so not to be confused with the ASU you might be familiar with, but they are a K-12 network of schools affiliated with Arizona State University that includes a robust global online program. We have Betsy Fowler, Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives. She's a former teacher and principal and currently oversees training for thousands of teachers across the world on transitioning to online learning. So great to have her here. We have Janet Holt. She's the Director of Special Education. She has experience with all ages and special attention lately to transitioning SPED to online. And she has been a leader in the state of Arizona around the topic of digital special education. So she's a great resource if you have questions around that. She'd be great to put some questions in for her. We also have Banji Judge. She's the Director of Personalized Learning, and she's a specialist with blended and personalized learning and leading the effort at ASU Prep schools to support best learning practices, no matter the model. And she has extensive experience in the history of digital learning and curriculum. So I just wanted to introduce all three of them and make sure that you're aware that they're here. If you had any questions, they're going to talk a lot about use cases, but if you have questions for them on best practices, definitely send those in through the Q&A panel, and we will do our very best to answer as many questions as possible. From the Zoom side, we also have joining us Wyatt, Kirk, and Brittany. They are going to be on the back end. You won't necessarily see them, but they will definitely be helping to assist answer questions that you send in through that Q&A panel. So please feel free to send in your questions, and we will go ahead and kick it over to our agenda. Great. So just to give you a quick outline of what we're going to go through today, first we're going to touch on logging in and just the website portal, review some of the settings in your profile. This is really to set you up for success before you start hosting meetings. We're going to talk about how you schedule meetings and the different tools you have available to do that. Then we'll go into Chrome, Firefox, Outlook, Google, all the different add-ins that you have available to make that really seamless experience. We'll finally touch on scheduling privileges a little as well, as that might be applicable to today's audience. We're going to talk about Zoom Mobile and what that experience looks like, as well as the desktop application. We'll touch on in-meeting experience and as the host, what controls you have access to and features. And then we'll talk a little bit about reporting, cloud recording in our Taking It Further section. We'll touch a little on Zoom Phone, Zoom for Home and Zoom Rooms. If you're not familiar with those, we just want to give you an overview and see if those might be something that would be helpful, or if you're using them today, give you a bit more information. All right, we're going to go ahead. As we kick things off, I'd love to hear from everyone who's on, just to get an understanding. We have a poll that should be launching here.
Like we're close to almost 10K, so I don't know. I think we could probably start.
Do you want to start, did you say?
Let's go ahead and get started here. Looks like we're almost at 10K, so probably a good time to start now.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. This is day 2 of Zoom Summer Academy for K-12. And we have people from all over the world joining. So if this is your first day, welcome. If this is your second day, welcome back. We had a tremendous day yesterday. We had 4 panels. The day got kicked off with our CEO and founder, Eric Yuan, who had a great message for teachers and educators everywhere. And we also showed a great tribute from our employees and children, saying thank you to teachers and educators everywhere. So if you didn't get to see it, it's on our Zoom Academy website, and it's really worth watching. So today, a few things about Zoom Academy that we want you to know. This is being recorded live. It is available afterwards. I know a lot of questions came that you're a dual role. You might be a teacher, and you also might be an administrator of Zoom for your institution. So if you are, you're going to learn a lot here today, but you can always take that other training track at another time. And one of the best things about the training is that at the end, we're going to have an assessment. And when you successfully pass that assessment, you will earn a badge and a certificate. So, which is all downloadable and printable, and all the instructions for that will be here in the training, and we'll also make it available on the Zoom Academy. We're doing things a little bit differently with the webinar today. You can ask your Q&A on the webinar Q&A capability. And we also are going to be monitoring the chat lounges that we have set up. So you can continue to mingle with the chat lounges, probably not during class, but anyway, you can continue to mix and mingle with your colleagues there. So that will, and then we also will be continuing to add resources to the Resource Center. And so be sure to share whatever resources you have with each other. And if you have some that you'd like us to put in the Resource Center, we'd be happy to do that too. Just mention it in the chat. And I think that is it. Oh, the other thing, actually, no, we opened up Zoom Store. So we had a lot of requests for having some swag about the Zoom Academy. So the store is open today, and you're more than welcome to get your swag for Zoom Academy. And just know that it might take a couple weeks to get to you because there's a high demand. And also too, we all know that with the COVID, shipping is a little bit off these days. So anyway, so let's get started. You got a great cast of instructors here, and they've worked really hard. We have partnered with our Arizona Prep Digital Academy to help us give contextualize examples to the training, since they are, an online academy. And so they've really been working with our trainers. And so I think you're in store for a fantastic day. Raul, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, folks. So once again, welcome to today's webinar. Just a little housekeeping. Don't forget, we are using the Q&A panel, so go ahead and send your questions in through the Q&A panel. We're going to do our best to try and answer as many questions as possible. We've got lots of people that even just jumped on board here, so that's pretty awesome to see. Keep your eye on the chat panel. We'll be using that kind of throughout the webinar just to shoot some links out there to get you some more info. We've got lots of great resources on our website that you can also take advantage of. But before I actually pass it over to our group here, just real quick, we got Vincent from the training team. We got actually quite a few people, Eleanor, we got Carrie from ASU. So we got a bunch of people actually also working in the background too. But before I turn it over to our presenters, I'm gonna play that video here. In case you missed that yesterday, I thought it was an awesome video. So let's go ahead and share this here real quick.
Raul, what are our numbers?
We're at 10K, okay. 10K plus it looks like. But let me go ahead and play this video here for everyone.
We love our teachers.
And we want to say thank you to all the teachers.
Thank you, teachers.
They're kind, helpful, and nice.
Thanks for teaching us.
We love our teachers.
Thank you, all my teachers. I love you.
Thank you, Miss Aubrey.
Thank you, Miss Muller, for helping me throughout the school year.
Hola, maestros. Gracias por enseñarnos por Zoom. I love you, Miss Ken. Thank you, Mrs. Clapp.
谢谢老师帮我们在家里学习。
I wanted to thank my teacher, Miss Sheila, because she told us really funny dog stories.
Thank you to all my teachers for everything they do for me.
Thank you, teachers.
Thank you, teachers, for teaching me on Zoom.
I really appreciate your hard work and dedication. Please stay safe.
Thank you to all the amazing teachers out there for everything you do. We love you.
Thanks for my Zoom meetings, Mrs. Simon.
Hopefully that came through for everyone. Vincent, hope that come through over here. All right, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get things started here. So I'm going to turn things over to our first presenter for the day here. I believe that's going to be, is it Eleanor or is it Vincent? Yeah, let's turn things over to Eleanor.
It's Eleanor, right?
All right, go ahead and take it away.
All right. So let me share my screen here with everybody. And let me welcome you again to our Zoom Academy Summer 2020. We actually have a nice table of contents for you today. So we'll be walking you through everything there is to know that you need to get started with your Zoom account. And that covers logging in, your web portal, scheduling meetings, joining and starting meetings, how to work the in-meeting controls that you have available to manage your students and your classes. And then also the Zoom desktop client will be part of the presentation today. We're going to talk about the mobile applications, and then we're also going to take it a little further about reporting, cloud recording, nonverbal feedback, and support. So we do have actually a few polls created for you today. We do have those prepared, and I believe those are the ones that Raul, you were going to kick off, right?
Correct. So we got one here that we're going to launch here. So you'll see that pop up on your screen there. So the first question is, how do you describe your level of expertise with Zoom? And then the second question that's in there is, what are you hoping to learn about in this training? So we'll give people some time here to chime in on that.
Yeah, so you're going to see those questions pop up on your screen, and then you have a chance to vote. So take your time.
I'm curious, considering we have lots of people on this webinar here. So Eleanor, you can let me know when you want me to end it, and if you want me to share the results, just so you can get an idea and get a nice gauge
Sure.
of our audience here.
Right. So, I mean, you see exactly what the response rate is. So I'm going to leave it up to you. When you think, yeah, we got a good representative, or a good representing amount of responses, then just end it and then just share that poll. Right, that is nice. That is awesome. So we have 47% are actually beginners today. So perfect. We are also going to cover the getting started version of our Zoom. So help you set up your account, walk you through those steps. And then also 41% moderate. So we're also going to have some new things for you today. This is fairly nice here. And then what is today's audience actually interested in? Majority, with 44%, were interested in breakout rooms. And then we have another little bit higher percentage with 15% in meeting controls. So this is really nice. And then whiteboarding, annotation, yes. And I can promise you, we have all that for you today. So whiteboarding, in meeting controls, that will be part of the little bit, I'm going to say in about an hour and a half from now, but we are going to cover that. So thank you so much for joining today. Also, as Anne has already noticed, or she has already notified everybody, we do have badges for you today. So she'll explain again how that works to get those badges for you. And I'm going to start it off now with the getting started part. So everything you need to know to get you started with your Zoom account is what I'm going to walk you through. And in detail, that will be logging in your web portal, your Zoom profile, the web settings, and then we're going to schedule meetings. I'm going to show you how you can schedule your classrooms, schedule your meetings for all your classrooms. And then I'm also going to let you know how you can join those meetings or how you do want to start those classes. All right, so getting started, first things first, let's log into the web portal. You can do that either, or logging into Zoom, you can either do that through the web portal or use your vanity URL. So once you come to the Zoom website, just type in zoom.us up here, you'll come to our website, or if you do have a vanity URL, then use your vanity URL and you'll be able then also to sign in to Zoom. So once you see the sign in experience, once you see the sign in prompt, then either type in your email address and your password, or most likely, a lot of people, especially in education, they sign in through their Google client, or probably you do have SSO enabled. So single sign-on is also an option. So click on single sign-on, and then you would just try to find your school. So type your school name, and Clever is one example that I pulled out for everybody today. So this is how it works. If you use Clever, then just search for your school, type in, and then go ahead and log in. So this
we're hosting a meeting, I have the waiting room turned on. Giselle would come into that meeting without having to go to the waiting room as long as she's in my account. If I have invited Betsy or Janet or Banji, they're not in my account, so they would be put in the waiting room because they're coming from a separate domain. You can also go ahead and specify which domains you want to put in the waiting room. So if you had a list of domains that you wanted to do that with, you can go ahead and specify that as well. Once you click save, you can go ahead and click next to the customize waiting room option. So when I click that, it actually will show up here and I can customize my waiting room. Now, I do want to caution that customizing your waiting room is only available if you're on one of our pro or paid accounts, meaning an education account, a business account, or a pro account. If you're on one of our free or basic accounts, you won't have the ability to customize your waiting room. So that is a key difference I want to be sure to point out. Here, I can add a logo. So if I have my school logo that I wanted to include in my waiting room so that when my students are joining to make sure that they know they're in the right place, I can also go ahead and set up that meeting topic and put a little bit of description in the waiting room. So when they're first put in that waiting room, they know maybe what the meeting is, and I can edit that here. So another great option. All right, and then here on the next slide, if we just scroll down a little bit further, we can go ahead and see some other settings here. So we have passcodes that we can set up. A nice kind of requirement when you're going ahead and scheduling meetings is we do encourage everyone to use our passcode feature. The system will go ahead and generate a unique passcode as you're scheduling meetings. But if you wanted to specify a passcode for your meeting or the class or office hour that you're running, you can go ahead and edit that as well. But here, I can require or decide to require the passcode for participants who join by phone. I can have that created so that when that passcode is set up, it's embedded in the link. So it's a one-click experience, which is really great for your students. We don't want to create too much friction, but that passcode does help. So for some instance, they had that meeting ID. Without that passcode, the person who has that can't get into your meeting. All right, so we're going to go to the next section, and this is just really talking about some settings with regard to the basic or in scheduling meeting settings, I'm sorry. Here, if you click here, you'll see you have the ability to decide whether you want the host video to be turned on or off. So if you have that ability, again, this is when you're joining. So as you join meetings as the host, you can have that be defaulted to be on, as well as participant video, but participants or your students who are joining have the ability to adjust that as they go through. You can also go in here and specify different types of audio that they can join with, and we'll talk a little bit about those phone settings, but a lot of great settings here. Join before hosts, that might not be something you want to do with your students. As a teacher, you might need to be, or an educator, you might want to have the ability to be the first one on a meeting. So you can decide if it makes sense for you to have that setting turned on, but here's where you're going to find those options. You can also do one other thing I want to mention is mute participants upon entry. So you have this option when you're scheduling meetings, but you can set this up in the settings section. So here, if you wanted to go ahead and make sure when your participants, your students, faculty, anyone joining a meeting that you've set up, you can mute them on entry, and then you can decide whether they have the ability to unmute themselves. But this might help if you have a large number of people joining to kind of have you kick things off, take control of that meeting, that classroom, set expectations, and then decide how they might want to unmute throughout that. All right, so let's go into in-meeting basics. So these are some great settings, and I just want to point a few of these out. So the first one is chat. We get a lot of questions around in-meeting chat and what the permissions or the options are. So you can decide here in your settings section who's allowed to chat and whether that chat can be saved. You can also set some of these in meeting, and we'll discuss how you do that a little later. But if you wanted to briefly just set up some of these requirements or these settings, you can do that around who can save chat. So whether you have chat auto saved as the host that will be available once that meeting.
Professional assistant, you can use the co-host feature that always helps you manage the classroom too. For engagement, using those nonverbal feedback buttons, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Using breakout rooms, being set up in your settings to do breakout rooms, and setting up for polling are all things that really help a lot. And then the places to always think is about settings. So in the chat feature, you can change it so students can't chat with each other, so they can't chat with the whole group. And that can help you manage the classroom, but might limit some of the student engagement. You can limit screen share from participants. You can put a student on hold or bump them back to the waiting room. And those things all can help you with management, but maybe things that are reducing some of the engagement. Bumping a kid back to the waiting room is a little bit like a send out. And so, kids may have some feelings if you're trying to bring them back in then. And virtual backgrounds, I think, are a great thing. Like, they're your friend and enemy for engagement. We'll talk more about them later on, but being set up for those can be helpful to help you have a professional background, might help students who are camera shy about where they're at, put up a background and might be a little braver about being on camera. At the same time, enabling virtual backgrounds could create a little bit of a distraction. So I just want to put these ideas out here. There's not a right or wrong, but just thinking about these sort of buckets of management, engagement, where do they work well together and where are they a little bit in conflict as you're thinking about setting up your Zoom settings.
Right. And I am now going to show you where you can activate those settings right here, where to find those specific settings you can make for that. So I'm going to take you over to the portal. So now that we completed the profile, our first settings, let's come down here to the settings tab. In the settings tab, we can do a few different things. So we can make some default settings and we can turn on and off features. So default settings I can make for meeting under security and when I schedule a meeting. I can also make some default settings right here for recording and telephone. And my features that I want to activate or deactivate, I will find under in-meeting basic and advanced. So let's just start off here with our meeting settings. The first and really most important settings that we have to take care of are our security settings. The waiting room, the first one I did want to mention. So waiting room allows Zoom to hold your students in a waiting room, or maybe the parents if you have an evening planned with the parents. So your participants will be kept in a waiting room, and you as the host of your meeting, you'll come to the waiting room and you will then decide who you want to admit to your meeting at which point in time. If really somebody makes it to the waiting room that is not supposed to be there, you do have an option to remove that person straight from the waiting room without that person even hitting your meeting. My waiting room, I do have more options that I can set for my waiting room, so I can actually customize that. In specific, I can say who should actually go to the waiting room. So who are the people that I want to keep in the waiting room and who can bypass the waiting room, who can admit participants. So if that is just the host and co-hosts, then leave the setting as it is. But if you also want to allow for anybody that was able to bypass the waiting room, if you would want that person to also be able to admit participants from the waiting room, you do have that option. So, right, you can also add more instructions. So customize that waiting room. What's going to happen is your participants, and Vincent's going to show you that here later on today in the in-meeting controls as well. So your participants that are coming to the waiting room, they'll see a message. On a pro license, you do have the option to come here, and everywhere where you see the pencil icon, you can change the message or change the description. You can even upload a logo right there. All right, so more security settings down here. Passcodes, really important. Passcodes will add an additional layer of security to all your meetings that you're scheduling. This will require your participants to type in that passcode that you've set before they can even hit your meeting. Without the passcode, your participants would not be able to join you. All right, and then further down, more settings. So let's move over to the default settings when we schedule a meeting. Host video and participants video. This means the webcams of you as the host and your participants. Would you like for them to be on or off once everybody joins the meeting or at the very beginning? Well, I personally prefer to leave my webcam off just for the very beginning. And in the meeting itself, of course, I do encourage everybody to turn on the webcam. Under audio type, you'd be able to select how can your participants join the audio part of your meeting. So on a basic license, you do have an option to allow for your participants to join you by computer audio. Once on a pro license, your participants can also be given the option to join you by telephone. Another nice feature is down here, the join before host feature. So if you would like to set up a meeting where your participants should be able to join without you being present at the very beginning, then you can always enable the join before host feature, and that would allow for that. But this would also deactivate the waiting room for that specific meeting. And then go a little further down. So join before host, we just spoke about that. And then I'm just going to stop at a few important ones right here. use your personal meeting ID when you schedule a meeting, if you allow for that. Then your personal meeting ID that I previously mentioned would be taken as your meeting ID for meetings that you schedule. And then down here is another really nice setting. I like to highlight that. Mute participants upon entry. This would mute everybody's microphone when everybody first dials into the meeting. So it's a great help at the beginning of your class to keep that noise level really down to a very minimum. In the remainder of the meeting, of course, you do have the option to allow for all your students to go ahead and turn on their microphone. All right, and then just move down to In Meeting Basic right here. This is where now the features are starting that we can activate or deactivate. So foremost right here, chat and private chat, always make sure that you use those slider buttons to activate those features. Otherwise, those buttons, those control buttons would then not appear in the meeting later on. Also down here, file transfer, if you would like to upload files into your meetings for your students to download, then enable the file transfer. And you also have an option right here for the file transfer to determine which file types you would want to allow. Now, for security purposes, I would strictly not allow for executable files. So if that is a Word document or a text document, then fine. But exe files and so on, I would just always exclude right here. So only name the ones that you would actually see safe to be exchanged in your meetings. All right, and then co-host feature down here. So once you're on a pro license, you do have an option to select a co-host, and that could be anybody in your meeting. That person doesn't even have to have a Zoom license, right? You are the one that needs to be on a pro license for that. But a co-host is a great help within your meeting. A co-host can assist you in all the administrative parts of your meeting. So muting students, for instance, launching your polls. A co-host would not be able to add polls or edit polls, but a co-host can always launch them for you. A co-host would also not be able to assign other co-hosts. So you as the host, you're the only one that can do that. A co-host would also not be able to start your live stream. So there are still a few options or a few features that you as the host that you would have to take over. All right, now polling, yes. So similar as to the polls that we just have all seen and used, you can use polls in all of your meetings. And this is a great chance, as Carrie has already outlined, to really interact with your students and to do some testing, to do some quizzes right there. Screen sharing down here, really important. Share your screen, share documents, and then in the portal, turn that on, that feature, and also make a setting. So by default, that should be only you as the host that can share your screen. However, even within the meeting, not only here in the portal, even within in each individual meeting, you would have that option right here to extend the screen share permission to all of your participants. Right, and further down, annotation, whiteboard, yes, those interactive tools that we want to use in all classes, go ahead, turn those on. And then further down, nonverbal feedback is also a great tool that you can use within your meeting. And Vincent's going to speak more about that once we get to the in-meeting controls. But the nonverbal feedback gives you a great option to just monitor your participants list and then see what kind of feedback your students are giving you. So that could be thumbs up, thumbs down. Lots of different feedback is available right there. All right, and then we're already down to in-meeting advanced. More features, breakout sessions. This is fantastic. So breakout sessions will allow you to create smaller meeting rooms within your main meeting, and these smaller meeting rooms are fully equipped. Means every participant, so also all your students, can be on microphone, can use their webcams. You can also use whiteboards, annotation tools. So whatever is available for the main meeting is what you can also use in those breakout sessions. A great way to open up smaller meeting spaces.
A little refresher on some of those. So thanks for that great opening session. And Okay, so next use case that we want to talk about is how ASU is using recordings. We're all about working smarter, not harder, especially right now as teachers are in the roles of not only teaching online, but also, in some cases, building content for students to be able to view on demand. So we utilize Zoom recordings. Well, first of all, we just try to record every single meeting that we have. So in case someone can't make it, that's sort of a culture. I feel like I can do the voice, like this meeting is being recorded. We do it all the time. So it's just part of the culture of our school. And we share those out after the fact. We'll put them in the weekly newsletters. Hey, in case you missed the staff meeting. So we absolutely use that on demand. We record PD with the intent that our teachers view maybe the Zoom recording before we come and maybe do breakout rooms or do Q&A sessions. And then we absolutely try to record anything that would be of value for students or families to view after the fact. Think things like orientations. Sometimes it's just teachers most comfortable in the tool that they're using every day for their instructional practice. So I frequently would record a quick screencast in Zoom because I was comfortable with it. I knew how to use it. I knew I could do it well, and I knew how to handle the recordings after the fact too. So those are a couple of ways off the top of my head. Janet or Banji, how else are you guys seeing, our Zoom recordings played out?
I think with the asynchronous option, a lot of our special education service providers are using that to kind of create a bank of things. Some of our speech language pathologists have been very creative and gotten little snippets for kids to be able to watch ahead of time, as well as to use as a review option for themselves. So they've done, little videos on, maybe some articulation concerns or some language concerns or some social, emotional, pragmatic kinds of concerns. And so it's been really neat to have them create their own libraries that maybe aren't necessarily a lesson for everyone, but as a resource and a way to go back. And so then when they are working with kids, they can reference them like, hey, you might want to go back and remember there's this, video that you can review on this skill. So it's bigger than just the live lessons. It's just, even using it to create a resource bank for students.
Let's jump down to under other. And one of the great features that we have here at Zoom, I can't really repeat that enough, lots of great features that are available, is our scheduling privilege. And this would allow you to give somebody else the permission to schedule meetings on your behalf. So you can assign somebody that can schedule meetings for you. On the other hand, if somebody else gave you schedule privilege. So if you are able to schedule meetings for somebody else, you would also be able to see that right here. Now that would actually require for both of you, so the person that you give schedule privilege, as well as the person that gave you the schedule privilege, both of you would have to be on a pro license. All right. So that much for the meeting settings. And as I promised, we have more settings. So right here, recordings and telephone. For recordings, every account, regardless of your license type, is able to record their meetings. If you're on a basic license, you always have the option to record all your classes locally to your hard drive. If you do local recording, this will produce all those files directly on your hard drive. On a pro license, in addition to the local recording, you have an option to also use cloud recording. So you can choose local recording or cloud recording. And cloud recording stores all those files directly in the Zoom cloud. One thing I would just like to highlight here is for the settings for your cloud recordings, you want to come in here and make those settings. So say which view would you like to record. Different views you can record actually in parallel, so simultaneously. You can record audio only files, and you can also save all the chat messages from your meetings and webinars. If you ever host a webinar, you can also save those directly with those recordings. So all you need to do really is come here and use those slider buttons again. All right, as I speak of recording and settings, an important setting further down is the recording disclaimer. So turn that on and just make sure that all participants are asked for their consent if you are recording, right? That can also have legal impacts if you record people that do not give you consent for that. So we highly recommend to use the recording disclaimer. All right, and then some settings for telephone right here. So if you are on a pro license, you would have an option, as I mentioned, not only to have everybody join you with computer audio, you can also offer telephone audio. And in there, just come here, select those global dial-in countries. You can just simply check mark those, and they would then appear on your invitations that you're sending out. All right, so still in the web portal, let's just move over to the meetings tab. So in the meetings tab, I will have an overview of all my upcoming meetings, my previous meetings. I'm going to show you those. My upcoming meetings, by the way, will only show me the meetings that I am that I have scheduled, not the ones that I'm invited to. Right, those I would see on my calendar. But if I'm invited to a Zoom meeting, that would not be replicated to the portal. Under the upcoming meetings, I do have an option to start or delete meetings. I can also make a selection if I want to see my previous meetings. Those are the meetings that have already been hosted. I will find also a filter right here. I thought that was under upcoming meetings as well. Okay, so my bad here. So I do have a filter. I can say, do I just want to see the meetings that I scheduled myself? So only my meetings, or do I also want to see the meetings that are for another person that I have scheduled privilege for? Personal meeting room, remember that 24/7 always available meeting that we have reserved for you that you can use without prior scheduling. Make some settings in here. So same settings that you make for all other meetings, like video and audio, meeting options, muting participants upon entry, and foremost, really important up here, passcodes and the waiting room. Those settings can be made directly here under meetings for your personal meeting room. And what we always recommend really for your personal meeting room is always have the waiting room enabled. And this will prevent anybody to dial into the meeting while you're already using your personal meeting room with another person. Because keep in mind, this meeting ID never changes. So somebody that you have met with on your personal meeting ID from last week may still have that link. Maybe they click on that by accident, out of curiosity, and the waiting room will make sure that that person cannot just bump into a meeting that you're having right now. Meeting templates is also a feature that we have available. We get to show you that today as well. So meeting templates allows you to save, for instance, templates for polls. So right here, if you are using the same polls for different classes, or maybe the same structure of meeting, maybe you do want to save that, then you do have an option to save those as a template. And then next time you want to schedule a meeting, using those templates, just come over here, schedule a meeting with that template. Maybe you have other reasons, not only polls, but maybe also recurring meetings that you always want to reschedule with the same settings, then use those templates right there. That can save you a lot of time and typing actually. All right, so once you schedule that meeting with that polling template that I just outlined, you'd see that you can schedule that meeting, and down here, all those polls would be available already. So as I mentioned, a great save of time right there. Good, and then we actually have the next poll for you. What is the purpose of enabling the waiting rooms? What do you think? So Raul, if you can just launch that poll for us real quick, and let's just see what everybody thinks.
There's actually 2 questions in this poll here, or
actually I should
3. I forgot on this one. Yeah, it was a little change up. So here, what is the purpose of enabling the waiting room? And I don't know. I'm trying to look here. Which of the following are available tools? And which following are available tools in annotations? And scroll down. The last question that's in there: who can add or remove participants to breakout rooms?
So I'm curious to see those results.
Yeah, they threw a little wrench on this poll here, so they added a few more questions in there. We have quite a few people chiming in here. All right. I also want to mention, folks, while we're launching this poll here, we are recording the webinar, so just keep that in mind. I know we're covering a lot of content, but yeah, we're definitely recording this webinar, so be on the lookout for that. Let's go ahead and end this poll here real quick. Also want to point out, for those of you that are joining via the browser-based version, you're not going to be able to see that poll pop up on the screen there. But let's go ahead and share the results here. Let's see, what do we got there? There you go.
All right, so purpose of the waiting room is, right, to screen participants, great, 12%. Send participant to the waiting room during the meeting if needed. Actually, that would be also a purpose of the waiting room. All of the above, 86% of today's audience that voted said all of the above. So yes, that is actually true, right? And then which of the following are available tools in annotations? Crop, stamp, point, text type, arrow, spotlight, save, draw. Okay, so majority was actually going for 70%, 75% actually of today's audience was going for text and type. And actually, the only thing that, let's just scan that real quick, draw, save, spotlight. Okay, so spotlight would not be available, and and crop would not be available. So I have not seen these features. Right, good. And then who can add or move participants to breakout rooms? Now that would only be the host, right? So the host would be the one managing the breakout rooms. Co-hosts are able to move in and out if they have previously been assigned to a breakout room, but the host is actually the one that needs to operate it. All right, glad we had that little quiz here. So let's talk about scheduling a meeting real quick. When we go back to the portal, right, we do have that meetings tab that I previously highlighted. And under upcoming meetings, I do have an option right here. I can schedule my meeting. And then I'm just going to give my meeting topic. I'm going to say, when do I want to host this meeting? Give the time, the duration right here. The time zone gets automatically pulled from the profile page. This is why initially I said it's very important that you set it to your local time zone, right? Because that would affect the scheduling right here. And then the next options that I can enable is registration if I want to use that. I do have an option right here under meeting ID to either use my personal meeting ID, the 24/7 always available one, or have Zoom generate a unique meeting ID. And this would actually be my preference. So if you are not having really personal talks with somebody where you would like to use your personal meeting ID, please always have Zoom generate unique meeting ID for you. And then, of course, passcode right here. So security, our passcode, set up a passcode, leave the waiting room enabled. Now, you do have the option, of course, to turn it off, but for security purposes, always have that waiting room on. And then the video and audio gets pulled from the default settings that we made. However, we can change that on a case-by-case basis. Then more settings are actually right here, the enable join before host. Remember, I just mentioned that at the very beginning that you do have the option to enable that. If you want to use it, you can even set how many minutes before you can other people join your meeting. Mute participants upon entry, one of my favorite default settings right here. I would always leave that enabled. And of course, you also have an option to use other features right here, like recording your meeting automatically, breakout room pre-assignment is possible, and then just hit that save button. Now, Zoom will generate a unique meeting ID for you, right? And as soon as we have that unique meeting ID, we can then add it to the calendars, send out invites through the calendar or through your school system. So you also have that option right here. And then, right, for all of your meetings, right, so for all of your meetings, once you've scheduled it, at the bottom of the screen, there will be two tabs appearing. So if you have live streaming enabled, that would appear, and also polling. So add up to 25 polls per 10 questions each to each of your meetings. So 250 questions that you can set up for each of your classrooms, for each of your meetings to bring out to your students. All right, and down at the bottom of the scheduling screen, you would find an option to edit that meeting at any time or start that meeting right here. All right, now as we talk of starting and joining meetings, so for your own meetings, you can actually start all these meetings directly from the web portal. And for that, I can take you over to the web portal. So right here, so once you're in your web portal right here, just go to your meetings, and then you find that option right here under the upcoming meetings, as I mentioned before. You can then just start any of your meetings. You can also delete any of those classes that you may have scheduled. Now, the other alternative, or two more options for you to actually join, let's see, right here. Apologies, I'm having issues with my presentation. All right, just give me 1 second. My presentation is not coming back. Well, that's the beauty of live events. So just 1 second here. All right, it's not coming back. Let me just
Yeah, maybe stop sharing. Maybe
yeah,
bring it back up. Believe me, it happens, folks.
Yeah, that's the beauty of live events.
I host webinars every single day, and believe me, sometimes it's just the computer itself. Sometimes it's just
right.
You know.
So, all right. Oops, apologies. I've lost them. So that's not the ones. Now this is odd, really odd. Oh, right here. Here we go. Okay, my bad. Apologies, everyone. All right, good. So I'm gonna start screen sharing again. All right, but no worries. We're not gonna have to repeat things here. All right, so that was the portal where you can start your meetings, and then also from your desktop application. I get to show you that later on, because we will show you the desktop application as well as from your mobile. So all those are options for you to start or join meetings. All right, and according to my schedule, we should have some nice Q&A now, right?
Yeah, we had some questions come in. I don't know if the team can chime in here. Lots of questions on vanity URL. So it looks like that was one of the big questions that came in here.
Right. So do you just want to quickly talk about those?
I can take that question. So vanity URL is something that is set up by your school, your district. It is the part of your email domain 99% of the time, where you would actually log in using that with the zoom.us URL. So it could be myschool.zoom.us as opposed to going to just zoom.us. And this is normally in conjunction with single sign-on, or what we call SSO, where a district would ask you to use your school credentials.
Trying to see what other questions are trending in there. We got so many in here. Any that you see
I've got one.
Sure.
We're getting a lot of question regarding polling, and if polling is available for the free or basic version. And unfortunately, that is it's a great feature, but it is a paid or licensed feature only. So while polling is great, some of you may not be having access to that at this time.
I think what other ones are trending. We have so many questions. Plus, we literally have like thousands of questions, so we apologize that we can't get to every single one right away, but we're trying. Let's see here. Any other ones that you see that might want to jump on?
I did, Raul. I saw some questions regarding chat, and chat is available both for public and private conversations within chat. It can be disabled so that no one can chat within the room, or that your users cannot chat privately. So it is a all or nothing for the privileges to chat, but those can be turned off by the host.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add something here. You can, of course, change that within the meeting. So for each meeting, you can make those settings.
And I just want to chime in. We're going to be covering that when we talk about the in-meeting control. So we're going to have all that good stuff covered for you, let you know how you can make those changes and what those changes affect when you're in your Zoom meetings and teaching.
Coming up next.
All right. Trying to look at the schedule here. I don't know if we want to take some more questions, or we're supposed to have like a quick little break. I know there's some breaks that they put in between there.
Raul, I'll just do one more question, and maybe we can kick it to the break. We are getting a lot of questions about actually the Q&A functionality in our session today, and we are using our webinar feature, which is made for large broadcasts and has that Q&A feature, which is kind of the orderly asking and answering of questions for the large number of people we have. It's a great feature, but it is webinar specific. So if you are using Zoom meetings, and today we're training on Zoom meetings, the Q&A feature is not available. You would have to interact with your students, your participants in your meetings or classes utilizing the chat function. But we are focusing on our Q&A for interaction, so feel free to keep using that. But that is simply a webinar feature for today.
Awesome.
Raul, I would like to answer a question we're getting that's trending a lot too. So as far as certification and badging, so the certification and badging is set up just for the live training. So if you take the teacher training as you are now, at the end there will be an assessment, and you can either take the assessment right away or you can take it later. It will be available. And after the assessment, then you get a certificate and a badge. So there's no big 2-day certificate. It's just the certificate for the live training.
Awesome. All right. Is it break time? I think we're
right.
Like
yeah, we actually have yeah, Raul, you're absolutely correct. We had foreseen a 15 minutes break for everybody to just relax a little bit and get prepared for more information and more nice things to learn that are coming. So if I'm just going to resume my share right here. Oops, apologies. So right here, we have that timer for you. So after 15 minutes, we'll be back for you. Thank you so much for attending.
All right, folks. We'll see you in a bit. All right, looks like we're back. Perfect. We got lots of questions in there. All right. Got to look at the schedule. Who's up next, Matt? I think that's Vincent, right? Awesome.
'Tis I.
Vincent always has a cool background.
Yeah, I'm a nonconformist. I didn't go with the blue backgrounds. My apologies.
All right. And folks, just a little reminder, we are recording this webinar. So like I said, we'll make sure to send that out. I believe you're going to get lots of content after this whole series is over. So be on the lookout for all of that good stuff. But I guess, Vincent, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thanks, Raul. So hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Zoom Summer Academy here. The next session, we're going to talk about your in-meeting controls. So Eleanor, first of all, thank you so much for taking us through the portal and scheduling a meeting and all the cool things that you can set when you're scheduling. So now you've launched your meeting. What can you do once you're in your meeting? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So you've launched your meeting. We have basically, this is your Zoom window. And if it's the first time you've ever connected to a Zoom meeting, which is probably not the case since you're all here today, but you may have it set so that it's always asking you to join your audio. So all you have to do is click your join audio button, and there you go. Join with computer audio. Now, depending on what kind of plan you're on or what license you have, if you're a basic license, then you won't have the phone call option. If you're not on our expanded audio, you won't have the call me option. Now, personally, I always join with computer audio. It's actually going to give you better sound quality than dialing in. Reason being is telephones can only operate at 8 kilohertz and at most 16-bit mono. Okay, so only just one channel. Whereas computer, you get stereo and you get a much higher bit rate. Okay, so computer audio is always going to be better. One of the most common questions that we see on a daily basis is, do I need a headset? Do you need a headset? No, it is not required. However, it is highly recommended, especially if you're going to be teaching and you're doing something where there's a lot of movement, for example. So use a headset. If you only have earbuds, that's fine as well. It's just if you're using any form of built-in microphone, like it might be built into your laptop or built in your webcam, it's just not as good. It sounds much more spacious. So another couple of other advantages of using a headset. As I mentioned, if you're moving around a lot, right? As I move my head, if I'm turning around and I'm doing this, well, the microphone never actually leaves. So the sound quality stays consistent. Also, these headset microphones are designed to really pick up just what's right around the microphone itself. So it can help cut down on background noise. All right, so we're going to click join with computer audio, and there we go. We now have a button down here that we can use to mute and unmute the microphone. Next to that microphone icon, you see this little up arrow or up caret. You can click on that. And if you have multiple microphones or multiple speakers that are detected by your computer, then you can choose which microphone and speaker do you want to use. So we see we have all the options to select a microphone and speaker here. There is also an option, if you are having some audio difficulties, there is an option to test the speaker and microphone. And that's going to run you through a quick audio wizard. Do you hear the ringtone? Then speak into the mic. Do you hear the replay? And if you say yes to those, then your audio is good to go. And if you don't hear that ringtone, you can say no. And then Zoom will basically cycle through the various speakers that you have until you say yes. Much like with audio, you have your icon here to start and stop your video, and you have that same up caret. If you have multiple webcams connected, maybe you have your webcam and then you have a second webcam or the built-in webcam on a laptop, you can choose which camera is active. And then, of course, you can change your virtual background on the fly. So right now I'm in my music studio, and if I want to change it, since we're talking about Academy, now I'm at, my university is my background. So you can always change your virtual background on the fly. And video settings, we're going to take a look at the desktop application a little bit later on today, and Eleanor will walk you through those video settings. Up here at the top, you see the little information icon. This is where you can get the information about your meeting. So what's the meeting ID? Who's the host of that session? What's the URL? Okay, also what we call our join link, your participant ID, and if there is a passcode set for that meeting, you'll see the passcode there as well. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the different views that you have for the cameras. So what we're currently in right now is the active speaker. And that's going to basically have the person who's speaking, right, who we designate as the active speaker, is going to be in that larger spotlight video that we see there. And then up top, we can see that we have that film strip or ribbon view where you can see up to 6 additional cameras. But let's say you have more. You want to see all your students at the same time. Okay, so for that, we have our gallery view. And we see up here, you're going to see a grid icon. Basically, it's a 3x3 grid. And that's what the gallery view does. It puts everyone in a grid format. What we've called the Brady Bunch view or the Hollywood Squares view. And this is what allows you to see multiple participants at a time. Now, by default, you can see up to 25 participants in the gallery view at one time. And then you'll have, if you have more than 25, you'll have scroll buttons on the left and right to scroll accordingly. If you have it selected in your video settings, which again, we'll take a look at a little bit later, then you can see up to 49 participants. And so you would have a 7x7 grid where you can see up to 49 people at the same time. Now, one of the newest things that we've added is this security panel. Right? So what we've done here is we've taken the features that have always existed or almost always existed and put them in one easy to find location. All right, so what this is going to do is allow you to control particular settings regarding the security of your meeting. Now, we do recommend enabling the waiting room. In addition to passcodes, it's just another layer of security that you can use to control the flow of your students into your meeting. And then if you see someone you don't recognize, you can, basically leave them out. You can also lock your meeting. So think of your meeting ID as a house address. Okay, so although it may, you have your personal meeting ID, you have the meeting ID that we generate. But locking meeting is like locking the door to your house. Once you lock the meeting, no one else can enter. Even if they know the meeting ID, even if they have the passcode, even if they know the magic word, doesn't matter. Once you lock the meeting, none shall pass. From here, you can also quickly control what your participants are allowed to do. Do you want your participants to be able to share their screen, chat, rename themselves, or unmute themselves? You also have the ability to remove a participant. So if for some reason someone does get in that shouldn't be in because you didn't turn on your waiting room, you can remove that participant and kick them out of the meeting. And then a newer feature here is the report option. This allows you to report someone for inappropriate behavior. So let's go ahead and take a look here at what that's going to look like. Okay, so we have, again, that particular screen. When you want to remove someone, it's going to bring up basically the list of people in the meeting. You can very quickly, let's say here, Remy shouldn't be in the meeting or is just being annoying. I can go ahead and very quickly remove Remy from that meeting. And then for the report option, if I do need to report a participant in my meeting, I can quickly from the security panel here, click on report. I'm going to specify who do I want to report. Whoops, went a little too far there. What was the problem? So why am I reporting this individual? I can add some additional information. I can upload a file if I took a screenshot, or Zoom will say include the desktop screenshot. Okay, so it's going to know what's on your desktops there. You can then say, include these screenshots because this is what the person was sharing, and this is why we're basically reporting the individual. Okay, now you can also, the next option here is managing your participants. And so when you click on the participant panel, this is the window that comes up. As people join, or excuse me, sorry, got a little ahead of myself there. When you click on more, these are global settings for the meeting itself. So these are things that you can toggle on or off when the meeting is live. Mute participants on entry. Eleanor mentioned this earlier. This is definitely a setting that we all recommend. It just means so that when people join, their microphones are automatically muted. So if you have people joining late, it helps cut down on the disruptions. A lot of people aren't aware that their microphone's unmuted when they join. And so you got to hear Doritos being crunched on. You got to hear the slurps of coffee, whatever it may be, or Mountain Dew in my case. So it's always a good idea to have that option on. Now, this one is something that you might to have a little more control of when people unmute. Do you want to allow participants to unmute themselves? So if you want to make sure that you're not being interrupted during your lecture or so forth, you can say, you can uncheck that option and your students won't be able to unmute their microphones unless you gave a student co-host permissions. So this is a great way to, you can uncheck that and don't have to worry about any interruptions and then toggle it on. So, okay, do we have any questions? You can toggle that on and now the students can unmute their microphones and ask their questions. I personally like this one. I know this one annoys a lot of people, but play a sound when someone joins or leaves. This lets me know, because if I'm presenting, I'm sharing my slide deck, I may not realize that someone has joined the meeting or joined the waiting room. So that ding helps me realize, oh, I've got to take a look at my panelist list. Allow participants to rename themselves. My title there that you see there, Vincent with the pipe, then senior technical trainer. That's how I rename myself. You may not want that option enabled because students are going to come up with funny things, funny names. So personally, as a teacher, I would turn that off. We then have access again to that lock meeting option and the waiting room. And you can control all that when you click on more from your participant list. Now to manage your participants, here you see the host. And if you're the host of the meeting, it's going to say that in parentheses. You'll see that is your microphone muted, is your video off or on. And then as your participants join and you let them in from the waiting room, you'll see whether their cameras are on, they're unmuted. Now, as you hover over an individual, you can click on more. And now we can chat with that individual. So that's going to, if you have private chat enabled, that's going to open up a private chat between you and that participant. If their camera is turned off, I can ask them to start their video, but I cannot force them to turn it on. I cannot turn it on remotely. So when I click on start video there, it's going to prompt that person to turn on their webcams. And they have the option to say, okay, sure, turn it on, or nope, I'll do it later. You then have other options here to basically manage your participants. So if I need to leave the class early, I have my assistant with me, I can make them the host. And so they have host permissions. They'll be able to do all the things that the host can do. And I can go ahead and leave and the meeting can continue on. If you do have assistants with you, you can go ahead and also make them a co-host. Now, a co-host is another participant in your meeting who has a lot of the same controls as you, the host. So they can help mute individuals, ask people to turn on their cameras, spotlight a video. There's no video on right now, so that's why we don't see that option, but you would also see an option here to spotlight a video. Spotlight a video means that that person's video feed shows up in that larger spotlight window, regardless of who's talking. Okay, so you might have a student demonstrating something while their classmate is talking about what they're demonstrating. Well, I need the video focused on the student demonstrating, so I would spotlight their video. So the co-host can do things like that. The co-host cannot end your meeting. They cannot add new polling questions on the fly if you're on the paid license. They cannot initiate any live streaming, and they cannot manage breakout rooms. Other than that, pretty much all the same controls as the host. By default, only the host can initiate recording, but I can allow someone to record locally on their computer. Here, I, as the host, can rename somebody. I can also put someone back into the waiting room. And whoops, sorry there. The fingers are a little click happy. And here I can remove and report. So you have all those options on an individual basis from your participant list. All right, next we have chat. So you have in-meeting chat that you can use. Okay, we have private chat enabled, so that's why we see privately here. And the privately is going to be indicated next to the person's name, so who sent it to you or who you're sending it to, and it's going to be in red text just to kind of draw extra attention. When you click on your more dots, okay, we can save the chat. It's going to save to your computer as a .text file. And we talked about a little bit about this earlier. I can control who my participants can chat with. If I don't want any chat going on, I say no one. But I want chat because it's really helpful because students can communicate things to you, but I don't want them to be able to communicate with one another. I can say they can only chat with me, the host. So I would set that to host only. I'm fine with a group chat, if you will, public chat. So they can chat publicly so that everyone can see it, but they can't chat privately because even though you're the host of the meeting, if there are private chats, you will not see the private chats between the students or between the student and another teacher's assistant and so forth. Okay. Or I'm fine with those private chats. We're going to do everyone publicly and privately. Now, when you are private chatting, okay, you have your two drop down here, and this is where you select who are you chatting with or with whom are you chatting. I was an English teacher. Now, on this, I do recommend that when you are using private messages and you're going back and forth between everyone and then private messages, take an extra second or two and make sure that you are sending the chat to the appropriate person. Taking that extra second or two can definitely help prevent potentially embarrassing situations. And I thought we had it, but we notice here we see the file button. This is for the in-meeting file transfer. This allows you to share a file with your students so that they can download it from the chat. You can share a file up to 512 megabytes in size, so basically a half a gigabyte. And you can share as many files as you'd like. And what it'll do, it'll put the file here in the chat, and then they can click on it to download and open. So it's a great way to share handouts, it's the first day, your syllabus, and so forth. Now for the big one, sharing your screen and content. That's one of the most important things here is being able to share slides, videos, whatever it may be that you need to share for your class. So you can control who can share. Okay, so obviously here hosts and or participants can share their desktop, an application, or even a blank whiteboard. Any participant can share content if they're in the meeting and you have it set that way. And the host and co-hosts do have the ability to stop someone else's screen share. Okay, so if someone is sharing, if one of your students are sharing and things go sideways, you can stop that share. So when you're ready to share content, all you have to do here is click on share screen. And you're going to be presented with basically a list of options of what would you like to share. If you share your desktop, that's sharing your full screen, if you will. So if you have Outlook open and you get those little Outlook reminders with the preview of the email, okay, those are going to show to your students as well. So in general, we recommend sharing the specific application like we see here. I can share just a PowerPoint, just a browser. Any open application on your computer can be shared. If you're an art teacher and you're doing some stuff in a drawing program, the drawing program will appear here and you can share that. Note, though, that it has to be an open, active window. If the window is minimized, you will not be able to share it. It will show here as an option to share. We also see here we can share a whiteboard, and this basically just gives you a blank white screen, and you can use the annotation tools that we're going to take a look at in just a moment. You can use those annotation tools to mark up the whiteboard of the screen. You can also use those annotation tools on a screen share. Right? So if I wanted to point out that we're going to share the whiteboard, I'm drawing a box on it right now, and there you go. We see that red box had appeared. Now, I saw a question earlier, just kind of glancing over, about they were playing something and nobody could hear any sound. So if you are sharing something that has sound with it, you want to make sure that you check the box here to share computer sound. So earlier during the break, we had some music playing during that timer and that countdown timer. So that means we selected share computer sound. Then if you're playing a video, you have the option here to optimize playback for video. So if you're sharing a video, and this could be a video that's on YouTube, it's embedded in your PowerPoint slides, or it's just a standalone video file that you have open in QuickTime or Windows Media Player, I want to select that option to optimize that playback. You only want to use this option, though, when you're sharing video. If you're sharing something that's text heavy, maybe you have a PowerPoint slide that has a lot of text on it, you don't want that option enabled. Because what it'll do is it will kind of pixelate and blur the text for a bit until it renders properly. So only use when sharing video. Then also note here, you can share your iPhone or iPad either through AirPlay or directly from that cable. You have some advanced sharing options. You can choose to share just a portion of your screen. So you'll select only show this top left corner. I can share computer sound only. So this is used when I don't have any content to actually share. I don't have PowerPoint slides. I don't have anything. I just want some music playing while I'm talking. Then you would select share computer sound only. And then if you have a content from a second camera, so you might have a document camera that you have attached to your computer, you can choose to make your screen share that document camera. And then you can also screen share files from any of the file sharing services that we see here. So Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, and Box. And once you've selected what you want to share, all you have to do is then click on Share. And then we have some options here from ASU.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. My name is Brian Austin. I am a math teacher with ASU Prep Digital, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the annotation tool. It is definitely something that we use constantly in our live lessons in Zoom. It's a great feature. So like I said, I use it every session, and as a math teacher, one way I use them is in one-on-one sessions to work out math problems with students. So I have a USB tablet that I plug into my computer, and I write on that with my pen, just using the drawing tool to write out those math problems, because it's a little hard to do with the mouse. Another way is during live lessons. So I am continually writing on the screen to work out problems, using the arrow feature to graph a line. You can draw a perfectly straight arrow. It's nice. Always using the hearts and the stars to kind of highlight what I'm speaking about or point something out just for fun. Use boxes to kind of box around things that I'm speaking about in that moment, or if I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna pop up a poll and it's gonna be about this question, I'll just put a box around it so students know exactly what questions on the PowerPoint they're gonna be asked about if there's multiple questions on there. And as a student, I have the students use the annotation tool as well if they have the ability. So if they have a trackpad, if they're able to write as well, I'll have the student work out a math problem as I observe their work, usually in the one-on-one sessions, or if I call on someone in a live lesson to work out the problem. I will have the students annotate and place a heart in agree or disagree boxes. So this can be used for discourse and conversations. You can have a question and then have an agree and disagree box on your slide, and have students annotate and put a heart or a star or something where they, if they agree or disagree with the question. It's also fun for brain breaks. You can just have students annotate and place a little arrow where their favorite ice cream might be, or things like that. A few tips for that, though: you may want to disable annotation during your direct instruction, because sometimes students do take it upon themselves to kind of write on the screen. It doesn't happen often, but you can disable it. You can disable students from annotating, which is nice, until you want them to. And then furthermore, you can select the option to show the student name next to their annotation. So if you were to click on the annotation, you would see exactly who made that comment or mark, which is nice. So those are just a few ways to use annotation, which we have found to be successful and fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. So we're talking about annotations. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at not just how you can use them, but how they actually work. All right, once you start screen sharing, you are going to have your toolbar that you normally have at the bottom is going to become a floating toolbar that we see here. All right, so I can grab that toolbar and move it to anywhere I want on my screen. If I have multiple monitors, I can move it over to a second screen and so forth. Once you click on annotate, okay, you're going to have the toolbar here that you see here. Okay, so mouse means it's just your standard mouse. It doesn't do anything special other than what mice get to do. Select means I can take an annotation and move it. So I can grab that annotation and move it on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and put in I'm just going to put a quick annotation on here. Okay, so there again, I just made a rectangle. I can grab select, click on it. I can reshape. I can change the size of that rectangle, and then I can move it on the screen. Okay, helpful hint, especially probably for like math teachers and so forth. If you need to make a perfect square, hold down the shift key as you click and drag, and note it makes it, all four sides are equal. So it makes that a square. I'm going to grab my spotlight again. All right, so we have the various tools that we see here. Note you can write on top of shared content. Again, you can use it on the whiteboard, so you just have a blank screen. If someone is sharing, if you are sharing a video, or basically you cannot annotate webcams. Otherwise, we'd all have eye patches and pirate hats. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate some of the drawing tools that you have available. You have basically freehand, so that's the little squiggly. So I'm horrible at, doing anything with the mouse. So just some squigglies there. You also have a line. You have, an open, so an unfilled rectangle, quadrilateral, whatever you'd like to call it. And the same is I can do a circle or an ellipse. So if I need an oval, okay, I can do that. Or if I get same thing like we did to get a square, I can hold down the shift key and make a perfect circle, not the band. Let me clear some of these out of the way. I have the highlighter. That's the check mark that you see here. So I can highlight something. I have an arrow. I have a shaded shape here. Okay, so it's not a full fill. It's basically kind of it's a little opaque, and I can do that for. Whoops, not that. There we go. And we can make a shaded oval. Okay, and if I remember correctly, this is called a rhombus. And what I call the double-headed arrow, because I don't remember the technical term. And then, of course, a complete fill. Okay, so if I wanted to block something, for example, I wanted to show like, okay, we're not going to talk about that, so I'm going to put a block over it so I know not to discuss it. I can do that. Okay, let me clear these again. So those are your drawing tools. You have the stamp tools that Brian mentioned. You have an arrow. Right, so it's great, little arrow here that you can point things out. Check mark. Okay, so if you want to say, okay, put checks next to this, they can do, your students can do that. X's, okay, in case you want tic-tac-toe. Stars. And two more here, hearts. Right, so you know, they put a heart next to what you like on something, and then lastly, they can pretend they're the Riddler and put question marks everywhere. Okay, so this is various annotation tools. Now, again, so how do I get to this particular toolbar? I have to click annotate up here. When I click on that, that is what's going to bring up my annotation bar. This is going to be true for your students as well if you are allowing other people to annotate. So if Eleanor, if you want to annotate something on the screen real quickly to kind of show how that's going to work. I'll show that I'm hands-free right now. Or did Eleanor step away? I don't know. Oh, there we go. So Eleanor's putting hearts on the screen. See, it's not me. So your students can annotate along with you. So it's really good for an interactive experience when you're teaching. The spotlight, this is the red dot that you've seen us using today. And it's just, think of it as like a virtual laser pointer. So it kind of helps draw attention to what it is you're talking about. You have an eraser. So if you didn't want to get rid of all the annotations, just some, I can then click on those with the eraser and erase those specific annotations. I have the format option here where I can change the color of what I'm using, undo and redo, pretty sure we all know that, and then I can clear drawings or clear the annotations. When I clear annotations, when I click on that, I'm gonna have the option to say clear everything, just I want it completely removed, or clear just my annotations, or clear the viewer's drawings. Okay, so I want to clear the student annotations. And then lastly, you have the save option here. That's basically like taking a screenshot, but you just click save and it's going to save a .png file or a ping file on your local computer. Another common question, we need to change what we're sharing. Okay, so I have maybe a couple of different slide decks that I use, or I'm sharing a slide deck and a Word document, and I need to move back and forth between those. So I don't have to stop my share in order to change what I'm sharing. I just want to click on New Share. When I click on that, it's going to bring me the same options that we saw before when I selected Share. And I can then choose what I want to share. So it makes for a much smoother transition. Maybe I need to verify the next slide coming up. Is that, like, am I on the right slide? What's coming up next? I could go to that next slide and see what's there by simply pausing my screen share. When I pause the screen share, your students are going to see whatever was last on the screen before you clicked pause. So if I'm making changes or I need to check something that may be sensitive information, student grades, things like that, I can pause the screen share, bring that up, and then close it down and resume the screen share. Now, when you click on more, right? Because notice we don't have all the same options that we normally have on the bottom of our Zoom windows. We don't see breakout rooms, we don't see recording options, none of that. That's now moved over to more. So here's where I can bring up the chat, initiate those breakout rooms, which we're going to take a look at a little bit later. Record. There's a question, if I don't want the students annotating, I can disable attendee annotation. And if I want some accountability, I can also show names of annotators. And I have the option there again to toggle that share computer sound and optimize for full screen video clip. And of course, you can end the meeting. Now, we've already answered this question before. And let me clear those annotations. So we don't need to relaunch the poll here, but just a reminder, you cannot crop in the annotations. Oh, and I did see a question earlier about text. So yes, I can put text on the screen. Okay, so there we go. And then if I use the select tool, right, I can always move that text around. But the one that is not available is indeed the crop. So here we saw the stamps. Point, you can use arrows to point, you can so forth. So it just depends on how you talk about that. We just saw text and type. We saw the other arrows. Spotlight again is that the virtual, I call the virtual laser pointer. And of course I can save and freehand draw. Okay, so next, breakout rooms.
Hi, I'm Danielle from ASU Prep. I used Zoom last year when I taught my high school English, forensic science, personal finance, and university prep classes. Zoom breakout rooms are such a great way to actively engage your students. You can assign different groups to different breakout rooms, or you can hit the random button and students will be randomly assigned together. This makes it great for a quick think, pair, share conversation or for actual group collaboration work. I love to use the Zoom breakout rooms to work with small groups. So I might have one small group where I'm working with them, and then in the other breakout rooms, there would be groups of students working collaboratively. If you're lucky enough to have a paraprofessional or peer tutors in your classroom, you can send them to different breakout rooms to work with those students. My favorite way to use Zoom breakout rooms is the virtual station rotation. So I create a schedule just like I would if I was holding class at the campus. And I work with students in the breakout room. In other breakout rooms, I have students working with collaboratively on a small group, maybe a shared document. And then in other groups, I have students working independently, and then we just have a schedule of when it's time to virtually rotate to the next schedule or the next rotation.
Great, thanks, Danielle. So now let's dive a little deeper into breakout rooms. All right, when you have breakout rooms enabled, you're going to see that breakout room button down here on your Zoom toolbar. Again, if you're already screen sharing, you're going to access it from the floating toolbar under the More section. So we're going to launch breakout rooms. Depending on how many people you have in your Zoom meeting, and it's going to tell you how many you have, you determine how many rooms you want to create. Let's say you have 10 people, you can do 2 rooms of 5, or you can do 5 rooms of 2. Now, automatically means it does it randomly. So Zoom is just going to take your students and randomly assign them into those breakout rooms. But I can also choose to manually select who goes in what room. That gives you a lot more control. You know, maybe a couple students don't get along too well, so I don't want to leave it to random chance that they end up in the same breakout room. Okay, once we select manually, we can go ahead and say create breakout rooms. This does not open the breakout rooms, it's just going to create them. Now we have breakout room 1, breakout room 2. You do have the option to rename those. So you can, study group 1, study group 2, whatever's going to work best for your needs there. Now this shows me who's in the rooms. It does not mean, again, that the rooms are open. This is just the assignments. Now we have Hal Jordan here. Maybe Hal and Vincent doesn't get along because Vincent can't get along with anybody. So we're going to move them to a different room. Even if it means that the rooms are not evenly distributed, I can do a room of 3 and a room of 5. Okay, it doesn't have to be 4 each. Or I can exchange. Okay, so if I move to, I can say move him to breakout room 2, or I have the option here to exchange. So that really basically makes it so that the room assignments stay even. And say we're going to put Hal here. We're going to swap out with Hank, or Aurora, or Carol, or Brian. So I can do a swap basically. Okay. There we go. We saw the swap. Hal is now in room 2, and we swapped him out with Carol. Here I have, at the bottom, I have some options regarding the breakout rooms. Do I want them to move in automatically? That means if that is selected, when you open the rooms, the student doesn't have to touch anything. They're going to be dropped right in to the breakout room. And they'll get a little message on the screen that says you're being, added to, or you're going to be joining breakout room 1, breakout room 2, or whatever is the name of that room. Do I want to allow them to come back to the main session at any time? Then I can set, so this is really good for when you're doing group work and the timing is of the essence. Breakout rooms close automatically after X amount of time. So you might be doing your talk, your presentation, and then, okay, we're going to go in and 5 minutes, we're going to go into our breakout rooms to discuss this particular topic. And then notify me when the time is up. Now, if I do set a timer on it, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, when that timer has expired, the rooms are going to automatically close. Excuse me. And then count down after closing the breakout room. And so they'll get a message, a notification. The student's going to say, the breakout rooms are closing in 10 seconds. And they'll have a little timer on there so they know that they can go ahead and join back to the main classroom, the main session at any time. But if they don't, there's going to give that timer. And I can set that countdown timer to anywhere from 10 seconds to up to 2 minutes. So anywhere from 10 to 120 seconds. Note down here, you also have the option to add an additional room in case I didn't create enough rooms to begin with. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to open those rooms. Okay, so the rooms are open. We see how long they've been open here and who's in those rooms. Now, as the host, I can move in and out of those rooms. I can move people into rooms. I can move people out of rooms. That's what I can do as the host. A co-host does not have access to anything like that. The co-host will be able to move themselves in and out of breakout rooms, but not until you've put them in a breakout room. If they stay in the main session with you, they can't join and leave the breakout rooms as they please. So you have to assign them to a room first. Then they can go ahead and move in and out of the room. So if you have someone kind of moderating or helping moderate for you, give them co-host permissions, put them in one of the breakout rooms, and now they can go from group to group to check on the students, make sure they're on task and so forth. But again, don't hover. Good option here is as the host, I can also send a broadcast message to everyone in the breakout room. And when I click broadcast, they'll see a message that says whatever it is you wrote. So maybe you're doing a 10-minute session, and at 5 minutes, they have to switch their roles or switch what they're doing. At the 5-minute mark, I can then broadcast the message to remind everyone in all the breakout rooms, okay, it's time to switch. And then, of course, I can then manually close the rooms. If I didn't set a timer, I can simply say, I know when I want the rooms to end. So at the 10-minute mark, I'm just going to close all the rooms. I just saw a quick question pop up. Can you have breakout rooms in the free version? Yes, you can use breakout rooms in the free version. Now, when your students are in the breakout rooms, they're going to have a question mark icon that's basically them asking for help. They need some form of assistance. So they're going to see this button. You can invite the host to this breakout room for assistance, and they're going to invite the host. So you're going to get a message that says, in this case, Elise in breakout room 2 has asked for help. I can say, I'll get to it later, or, yep, let me join that breakout room now so I can go ahead and help Elise with the assignment. And now let's talk about polling.
Hi, good morning or afternoon, wherever you are joining us from. My name is Allison, and I also work at ASU Prep Digital. Again, really great features with polling. I can't say enough. And again, you've had some experience today so far in our sessions with doing some polls. Again, a really great way, regardless of the grade, K-12, really great in terms of engaging your students. Some of the things that we do or recommendations for using polling is maybe a quick check-in at the start of a lesson, as something as simple as, you know, how is everyone doing today? It's used throughout lessons for some quick formative assessments. So if you're doing a little bit of that, I do, we do, you do, and in your lesson, and you want to just, you know, do a quick check-in with the students on how are they doing. Maybe you're throwing up a question based on your little chunk of teaching that you did, you know, maybe every 10 minutes. You know, doing some preference surveys is a great thing. You know, what would you like to see in next week's live lesson? A lot of the times in my live lessons, I've done this as an exit ticket, you know, putting some questions on those polls and creating that exit ticket before they leave. Again, the nice thing, which I'm sure we'll move into here soon, is that you're actually able to view that data from the polls. Again, especially at that example, right, of an exit ticket. I want to know more about my students. You'll have some options, whether to make the poll anonymous or get some names, which again, can help inform your instruction for your next live lesson. So can't stress enough how much I use polls, you know, in some capacity, usually in every one of my live lessons, or at least maybe every other week. So they don't get too bored or, you know, too routine with the polls. And the nice thing with the polls, you create them ahead of time. You can have 2 different types of questions. And again, you can potentially even reuse. I know one of my colleagues does this, is creates a very generic poll. And then in their slide deck, they may have a question, right? That might be a multiple choice, A, B, C, D. And then they would just launch the poll with those choices. So they don't have to keep redoing the polls, right? If it's a true, false, or again, one of those, how are you doing today? So again, a really great tool to use in Zoom for engagement, you know, getting that pulse on how your students are doing, again, as an option too, as an exit ticket.
Great, thanks, Allison. Okay, so we're going to take a look at polling now. It's pretty simple. Now, first thing to note though is polling is available for those on the paid pro license. If you're on the basic license, no polling for you. So you're going to create the poll in the portal. Okay, so when you log into zoom.us, you have your meeting scheduled. You're going to see, and Eleanor showed this earlier, you're going to see polling at the bottom, and that's where you can create your polling question. You can have up to 25 polls with up to 10 questions per poll. So theoretically, you could ask 250 polling questions. Seems like a lot, but you can do that if necessary. You're going to enter your poll name. I recommend using some naming scheme so that poll number 1, so that basically you know what order to launch those polls, poll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a name to kind of give it an idea of like, okay, this is the question about plasmodesmata, and this is the question about xylem and phloem. If you select anonymous, like we see here, that means when you run a polling report, you will not be able to see how each student voted or participated in that poll. It truly makes the data fully anonymous. You're going to enter your question here, and you can make it single choice, so they can only choose one of the answers available, or I can make it multiple choice, and they can choose from multiple answers that are listed here. And again, if I want to ask 2 questions at the same time, I can do so. Just click add a question. And then once you've entered your polling questions, click save. Now in the meeting, you're going to click on polling and you're going to select which polling question you want. So there's going to be a drop-down question here, or excuse me, not a drop-down question, but a drop-down. And that's where you're going to select. That's why I say name them something that makes sense, something logical, especially a numerical sequence helps a lot. So we see polling 1, polling questions, right? Poll 2, next type of questions. If I click on edit, and only the host of the meeting can do this. And I'm not talking about the person who has host permissions, but the person who scheduled the meeting. So the scheduled host. They can click edit to add a new polling question on the fly. Co-hosts, although they can launch polls, they cannot add new polling questions on the fly. All right, so I've selected the poll I want, and I'm going to click launch poll. Okay, now, for those we've used polls earlier today, so you've seen kind of what that experience looks like. Now, as the host of the session or the co-host, I'm going to see those answers coming in real time, so I can get an idea of what are some of the more popular answers to something, and talk about it while the poll is going on. Oh, we're getting a lot. I mean, granted, there's only one vote here, but look at that. We're getting a lot of people selecting blue. Nobody's selecting red. I wonder why that is. And so you can make it as part of a discussion point while they're participating in the poll. I have a timer up here that lets me know how long I've had the poll open, and then how many people have participated in the poll. So if you have to have every single student answer, you want to make sure that it's 100% voted. I can then end the poll and then share those results so that everyone can see which was the most popular answer. Now, note here we see these numbers in parentheses. That is only visible to the host and co-hosts. When you share the results, your students will only see the percentages. Okay, they won't see the number in parentheses, so they won't know how many actual people voted for an answer. And of course, during the session live in the poll, their names will never be associated with their answers. In the meeting, we don't see that. We only see that in the poll report, again, if we did not select anonymous. I also have the ability to relaunch a poll. So if I'm going to ask the same question, I can relaunch the poll. An important thing to note, though, is if you relaunch a poll, it wipes the results from the previous launch of that poll. So you're going to lose all your results. So if you're trying to make an assessment at the beginning, kind of gauge their knowledge level, and then see did their knowledge improve at the end, don't relaunch the poll. Simply make 2 separate polls, but asking the same question. That way you kind of get that before and after assessment in terms of kind of doing a knowledge check or gauging their learning. Okay, we're gonna move on to recording now. For recording, if you are on the basic license, you can always record, but you can only record locally. Okay, so it's only gonna go to your local computer. You're gonna have an MP4 on your hard drive. And when you click record, if you're on the pro license or the paid license, you can say, you're going to have the choice now, I can still record locally if I want, or do I want to record to the cloud? So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you how you can access your recordings. And to do that, we're actually going to do a live demo here. So no more slides for a bit. When you're logged into your Zoom portal, again, you go to zoom.us/sign-in, or if you're doing SSO, you would sign in that way. And you're going to see recordings here. I'm going to click on recordings. Yes, thank you. I don't need that message. And here I'm going to see all my recordings. I'm going to see the topic, the ID, when did I launch that meeting, and here I see the different files. Okay, so this one has 6 files, and this is going to be based on what Eleanor was pointing out earlier, what you have selected in your recording settings. That will determine how many files get recorded when you record to the cloud. When you click on share, you're going to have some options here. Do you want to add an expiry date? Okay, so I can say this is good for 7 days, it's good for 30 days, or I can set a custom date. By default, viewers cannot download your recordings, but you can allow them that option. I can make the recording on demand. So this means that the student would need to register to view that recording. I can password protect my recording. And then here is where I'm going to be able to grab the link. Now, the advantage to cloud recording, so that's a very common question is, well, should I cloud record or should I record locally? With cloud recording, some advantages to cloud recording are it makes it a lot easier to share the recording because here I have a link. It's that simple. I just give them the link, they can click on it and watch that recording. Also, cloud recording records from the perspective of the viewer, okay, or the participant perspective. So it's really good for watching a training again or watching a class session again. But of course, with cloud recording, you do have to be concerned with how much cloud recording storage do you have. Okay. And another common question that's going to come up probably on that is, well, how much space does a recording take up? And on that, it just really, really depends on what was going on in that meeting. If everybody was off video and it was just a bunch of talking, it's not going to take up a lot of space. But if there's a lot of video being played back, 49 people have their webcams on and you're sharing PowerPoints, you're sharing videos, you're sharing Word documents, it takes up more space. Okay, we're going to click done. At least I'm going to try to click done. That's just lovely. There we go. Click on more. Okay, I can download all 6 files and I can delete the recording. The other thing I want to point out here is if I click on the topic, this is where I get the individual files. Okay. All video files will be an MP4. If you choose to record audio, that's going to be an M4A. If you have the audio transcript feature, which is an awesome feature, that's going to be a .vtt, and a chat file is a .txt or .text file. So let's go ahead and get that link, and we're going to show you what the recording looks like. It's probably wasn't the best one to grab because it's probably still processing to some degree. Give me just one moment. There we go. All right, so because of our recording settings, we have the presentation in this section here, the webcam up here, and here is that transcript. So I can search that transcript. So if I'm the student and I'm like, oh, I don't remember what the teacher said about this, I can put in the keyword. This is our Zoom meetings training, so I'm pretty sure we talked about scheduling. And there we go. It's going to highlight it here where we have the word schedule. So a really cool feature there. And if there were any chat messages, public chat messages, private chat messages will not show here. Okay. So really cool feature for cloud recording. Local recording, I'm going to come back here real quickly. I can't access them from the web portal, but I can get a list of at least their location. The thing with the local recording is you don't have the recording storage limit. Your limit is going to be how much hard drive space do you have left. The local recording also records from the person who's recording. It records from their perspective. So if I'm doing a local recording and I'm goofing off and I'm going back between gallery view, speaker view, pinning random videos and all that, that gets recorded in that recording. So just keep that in mind if you are using local recording. Now let's go back to the slides. As Eleanor mentioned earlier, there is a disclaimer that you can play that this meeting is being recorded. So that's a good thing to have. That way people can give consent that it's fine. Otherwise, they can leave. If you are local recording, you'll note that it's local because you see kind of just a circle there with a red dot in the middle. If you're recording to the cloud, we have kind of a cloud-shaped icon there with the dot in the middle. And I can always pause or stop that recording. Okay. If I pause the recording, when the recording is done, I will have one file. If I stop and start, stop and start, and stop and start, it's going to cause a break. And of course, therefore, you're going to have multiple files to download or that you can share. Okay, we have closed captioning available. You can either assign it to someone in the meeting to be the captioner, or you can say, I'll do it myself, or you can use a third-party closed captioning service. So you just have to give them the API token. And then as they're typing, they're going to type in their stuff here, they'll enter and it will broadcast it to the attendees. Now, what you have right now, we have live transcription on. This is a feature that's in beta right now. It doesn't require a third party. We're using, it's our own service, if you will. And that's what you see at the bottom of your screen. Okay, and let's do a quick poll here. Hopefully we have it. Yep, there we go. So what features do you think you should use to make sure that you've secured your classroom? We've talked about all these. Which ones are going to be best to, again, secure your classroom? Now, right now, we got a lot of people selecting the waiting room, and that is absolutely true. Meeting passcode, also a great way. I think my video froze. Okay, I think we're back. Meeting password or passcode, also a great way to secure your meetings. And then lock meeting. Okay. Remember, locking the meeting prevents anyone else from being able to join. Mute on entry, although is a good thing to enable or to turn on, it's not a function of security. It just makes it just causes less disruptions as people join your meetings. And we're going to go ahead and yes, thank you for doing that. So most people select the waiting room. Again, the top three, the first three, waiting room, meeting password, and lock meeting, are all ways to secure your meeting. Mute on entry, good practice, but doesn't make your meeting secure. Okay, and it is, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to this part, it is break time. I don't think we're going to do 15 minutes on this one. We might make it a little shorter. But be sure to get up, move around, get the blood flowing again, and we'll be back shortly.
So let me just dump the music right here. All right. Disappeared. 1 second, right here. So here we go. All right, so welcome back. And I hope you had a nice break, nice little break, something healthy to eat and maybe a little water and fresh for the final rounds here. We're gonna now take you through the Zoom desktop application and the mobile applications that we have for Zoom. And after that, I'm gonna show you some companion device, some brand new companion device that we got for you. And also, I'm gonna point you to some additional resources and some support help for you. All right, so with that, let's have a look at the desktop application. I did mention before that your Zoom desktop application allows you to make settings. So the settings that I previously showed you, those are actually to turn on and off features and to set default settings. However, your Zoom client, so your desktop application, allows you to do a lot more than that. Your desktop application allows you to personalize your Zoom experience, so make really personal settings for yourself, and you can make sure once you downloaded the Zoom client for meeting and you logged in to your Zoom desktop app, then those settings will be applied. And regardless of what other hosts that have invited you to meetings, your settings will then just take precedence. All right, so your Zoom client for meetings allows you to schedule meetings, you can join meetings, you can use instant messaging with your other Zoom contact, you can use Zoom phone if you have it, and you can also schedule meetings from there. Did I just mention that? I think I did. Okay, so instant messaging, and of course some other settings. So as I mentioned, some settings, how Zoom behaves for you, and I get to walk you through that. So to get the Zoom client, the Zoom desktop application, as we call it, you want to come to zoom.us download, or basically on any of our web pages, just go to the bottom of each of our page. There is a section that will say Download Center. So go to the Download Center, and the first one that will appear to you is the Zoom client for meetings. Currently, we're on version 5.1.2. So always make sure you have the latest version downloaded as well. All right, so install that, and this will then appear in your panel down there. You also have an option to add this to your meeting control bar. So to sign in to your desktop application, simply click on Sign In right here. And then you got a few more options. You can either type in your email address and your password, or again, as most common in education, a lot of you would probably use your Google account to sign in, or maybe use single sign-on. So if you want to use single sign-on, and again, I'm showing you the example for single sign-on that we had with Clever right here, one of the most common ones, or one of the really frequently used ones out there. So then just click on SSO, your Clever SSO would come up, search for the school, and then just log in from there. All right, so once you're logged in, this is what you're going to see. So right here, this is your home screen. You do have a few options. So you have a tab for home. Furthermore, we'll talk about chat right here, phone, meetings, your contacts, and from your home screen, you can do a few different things. So you can schedule or start a new meeting, apologies. So you can start a new meeting at any time, instantly start a new meeting without prior scheduling, and then from within your meeting, invite participants. You can also join an existing meeting or join a running meeting. So if you have the ID, the meeting ID that the host has given to you and possibly the passcode, click on join, and this is how you can manually join every other meeting. Down here under schedule, you'd have an option to basically do the same that we did before on the portal. So schedule meetings from right here, and you'd also be able to share screen. All right, so in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see your icon, so your image, I should say. So if you uploaded an image, you'd be able to see that right here. And then click on your image and, oops, apologies. Okay, so that, okay, I'm missing a screenshot here. Apologies. So right here, we do have an option. See where this little snowflake's at. This is where you can open settings really of your desktop application. And when I said settings of your desktop application, that's where you personalize your Zoom. This is what it looks like. So you'll find your setting. So you'll find your settings right here. And as I mentioned, a lot of great features or settings that you can make from here. So general settings, right? Just adjust your general settings. If maybe you do want to use dual monitors, maybe, maybe you do want to show your meeting duration within your meeting. So go through each of these settings and really see what those settings are, and then make a decision if you would like to activate or not activate those. All right, and then we have more over here. So video preferences, when I click on video, now this allows me to make specific settings for my video. For instance, I can touch up my appearance. So by enabling this, I am basically activating a softener for my video. I always have that enabled. It just helps me, just look a little nicer on screen. So I personally prefer that. Down here under video, more options. If you turn off your video when you join a meeting, you do have that option. So right here, activate this, and this will ensure that if you are invited to another person's meeting, you can join their meeting with your webcam off, even though they might have made the setting for all the webcams to be turned on, because your personal settings will always override other people's settings. All right, and also for your same meetings, right? That also means you will have that extra moment at the beginning of your meeting. You can just orient yourself, bring everything up on screen, and once you're ready, then go ahead, turn on your webcam. I just love to have that extra moment. All right, and then down here, another right here. So the last one actually, display up to 49 participants per screen in gallery view. This is a setting I'd like to highlight to you. This will make sure, apologies, so right here. So this will basically extend your gallery view, as Vincent has showed you, 25 participants by default, and you do have an option to bring that up to 49. And if your system supports that, you can then, after activating this, you can see up to 49 video tiles of your participants on one screen. All right, now for your audio settings, come in here, make specific settings to your speakers, to your microphone. You can always test your speakers and test your microphones from here. You do have an option right here to also use a second audio device as a ringtone. And that is really helpful if you are typically using headsets and you just put your headset down, then you can select another audio device. So the speaker, for instance, of my laptop can ring simultaneously when I receive a Zoom call. So that would notify me, even though I might have had my headset down on my desk, it will still notify me because my computer's speaker would also be ringing for me. All right, and in here, mute the microphone when I join a meeting, another nice setting. I just don't want to interrupt anybody when I join the meeting. Maybe I have some background noise that I'm not aware of. So I'm going to mute my microphone when I join the meeting. Make some specific settings for your sharing. So if you want to share your screen, make some specific settings. So or if you want to see screen sharing of others, for instance, if you want to scale to fit the content to the Zoom window, or if you want to see the side-by-side mode. And side-by-side mode would let you see video and shared content next to each other. All right. Now, the virtual background, once we have that enabled in the portal, as we previously showed you, remember under settings in the portal, Go to those settings, enable that virtual background, and then come to your desktop application. And this is where you would be able to select any of the virtual backgrounds that Zoom offers to you. So by default, Zoom will deliver a few backgrounds to you, and those can be images or even video virtual backgrounds if you want to allow for that in your portal. So select any of those, or by clicking on the plus sign right here, you always have that option to add your own personal backgrounds. So the backgrounds that most of us are using today, the black one, well, this is a customized background, and we have just all made us the same background. So we just look a little nicer today. All right, so make that option right here. And then for recordings, we showed you the recordings on the portal. So the settings for the recordings on the portal. Now, remember, maybe just quickly recall when we went to the recording settings, there was one option for you to turn on the local recording on the portal. And the other option had the turn on and off for the cloud recording and specific settings for your cloud recording. Now, similar right here in your desktop application, you can make specific settings regarding your local recording. So come in here and determine where would you like to store your recording files when you record your meetings. And then you have more options in here. So almost the same options as you have on the portal. You can record a separate audio file for each participant. You can optimize for a third-party video editor. So if you later on wish to edit your video that you have been recording, then it's a good idea to just optimize that, make it a little better quality. Add a timestamp to the recording. That option is also available on the portal for the cloud recordings. Excuse me. And some more options right here. So make your local recording settings always directly here on the Zoom application. All right, now that was your home screen right here. And when we move over to the meetings tab, we can see upcoming meetings, and this is the other option I promised to show you. So not only can I start or join meetings from my web portal, I can also use my desktop application. So in here, go to the tab Meetings, and you'll find your upcoming meetings or your recorded meetings. So also access your recordings from your desktop application. You do have an option then to open those recordings, play the video, and a little more options right here. All right, and we do have the next poll for you. So what do you think? Do you have to edit your virtual background prior to starting a new meeting? Think about what Vincent shared with you, what Vincent showed you on the in-meeting controls. All right. Lots of responses coming in. All right, awesome. So let's see. Okay, my screen froze up just a little bit. All right, so I think we can probably end the poll, Raul. Nice. This is very nice. A lot of you have said like 82%. So if you're sharing that, Raul, thanks. 82% had the right answer. So you can actually change your virtual background from within the meeting. All right, let's move over to the mobile application. Now, the mobile application, you can download either in your Apple Store or for Apple and Android devices. So you can go to the App Store or to the iTunes Store. So you can also download that on zoom.us download. Same resource that I showed you earlier. And I just noticed that we have a wrong screenshot in here. So let me show you. So right here, really at the bottom of each of our web pages, come to the Download Center. And this is the Zoom client for meetings that I showed you. You can also download Microsoft Outlook add-in or the extension for the browsers, which allows you to add, or actually that will add the blue button up here. So you can also schedule and join meetings directly from your calendar. All right, and here's the mobile app. So right here, either go to the App Store or go to the Google Store and then just download the mobile app. And the mobile app actually allows you to do a lot, to do a lot more. Okay, same issue again. Let me switch back here. All right. So using the mobile app allows you to take your Zoom with you wherever you go. Wherever you have internet access, you can use Zoom. So your mobile application you can use to start a meeting, to even schedule a meeting. So we can do all that, right? Once we have the mobile app, we can sign in and then we can just join a meeting right here. I can also have almost the same options than my desktop application. So right here, I can start an instant meeting. I can join a meeting. I can schedule another meeting. And of course, even on my mobile app, I can see all my upcoming meetings. So all that is synced actually. So if I log in my desktop application, in my portal, in my mobile app, all that will be synced. So I'll see the same information throughout all devices that I'm using. All right. So if I join a meeting, then I can just type that in here, same as on the portal. And I can see all these upcoming meetings with, of course, a button for me to start it if that is a meeting that I have been scheduling, or I can send out invitations. I can also edit it on my mobile app. And if that is a meeting that I'm invited to, I will see that button right here where I can join that meeting that somebody else is hosting. All right, now once you join a meeting or host a meeting on your desktop, on your mobile app, that also means you could probably be on the go. Maybe you're driving in the car. We have a safe driving mode for you. And this means you'll basically see that you would have to tap to speak. Your video would be turned off, and video of other participants in that meeting would also be turned off. So really, we do want you to be safe when you're using Zoom, when you're on the go. So no distraction for you means you can then just choose the safe drive mode, and that would just make sure that all that distraction is going away. Mobile settings. So when you go to the settings of your mobile app, you can select different settings similar to the ones that we saw before. So always mute my microphone, always turn off my video. So just go to your mobile app, go to the settings, and then just find your own personal preferred settings. All right, and as I just mentioned, some other devices we have, and one of the latest ones is actually Zoom for Home. Another companion device that allows you to use or to schedule your Zoom meetings, to join your Zoom meetings, to host your meetings, to use annotation, to use whiteboards because you have a touch screen included. And this is one device that has everything. So a webcam is in there, a microphone is in there, you have the touch screen. So really for your very personal Zoom from home experience. And you can actually use Zoom for Home even on a basic license. So regardless of your license type, you will be able to use all devices that we have, starting with your mobile phone. So log in on your mobile, log into your computer, and log in to Zoom for Home, regardless of your license type, basic or licensed. All right, so I have a few more resources for you that I'd like to share. And I'm actually going to put those in the chat here in just a minute. I can't actually copy paste them right now. So I'm going to put those in the chat for you. We have some more guides for you to educating over Zoom. This is a comprehensive guide. I'd like to recommend that for you. We have some tips and tricks for you. Teachers educating on Zoom, also for administrators and staff. Student tip, tips for participating in the new online learning, and also how to securely host a virtual board meeting. So that is information for you that I'm going to paste in the chat here in just not very, maybe just 2 more minutes when I conclude that presentation here. And then support resources, go to support.zoom.us. You can always reach out to us. And not only can you really contact our support, you will also get to our help center. And I'll just show you a little more about that here in just a few seconds. We have a blog for education, specifically for education. So that link is right here. And I'm also going to share the link for you because I've seen that we have a lot of questions on Chromebooks actually. And we do have a blog post on using Chromebooks with Zoom. And I do want to make sure that I'm sharing that with you. Also, what I'm going to show you here in just a second are videos, video tutorials that you can watch, small bite-sized information pieces, videos, and really as we are international, those are in different languages. So what we've done here is we have recorded small video tutorials for you in different languages, and that was all colleagues here at Zoom. Everybody who knew another language was recording, and for right now we have this in English, Spanish, French, Deutsch, and Japanese. So I will make sure I'm going to paste those links to you. And now let me show you what I mean with that additional information that I am going to share with you. So I am just going to, let's see, go back here. So I'm going to come back here to my profile, and what I will always have is right here on the left-hand side. So I'm not sure if you already saw that. You can go to the knowledge base, and this will do the same as the support button up in the right-hand corner. So once you click on that, you'll come to the help center that I wanted to bring you to. In the Help Center, you can do a lot of great research. So if you have questions, if you get stuck somewhere, then just start typing your question in here. Our Help Center is always there for you. So if you have a question, maybe on the virtual background, right? If you just want to read up more, then start typing your search term. Zoom will automatically bring up related support articles. So you can find those related support articles, and then just come to those step-by-step guide. Now see, this one already has a video tutorial in there. So step-by-step guides on almost every subject are available. Coming back here, we have some quick start guides for you also for owner and admins, users and participant, top 20 resources, and down here at the bottom, you can even go to those support articles grouped by support topics, so by most popular topics, getting started, audio, video, and a lot more. And down here is the option for you to contact the support once you're logged in. So coming to the top 20 resources, I'd actually like to show something. So right here under the top 20 resources, or actually when you go to any of the Zoom websites right here. So if I just open Zoom brand new, I will always see this banner up here, and that says we have developed resources to help you in this challenging time. So click on here, and this will bring you to our support during the current pandemic. Besides a lot of those items we already covered, well, I'm also going to show you the training resources. You can find information about privacy and security, also the Zoom 5.0 update, remote working, home office setups. These two articles can be extremely helpful to you if now you're teaching from home and you would just like some resources to help you set up a proper work environment from home and actually secure that. So you want to make sure your home workspace is also secured. But really what I do want to bring your attention to is right here, educating over Zoom. That will bring me directly here to a collection of blog posts, of articles. So tips and tricks for teachers educating on Zoom, education guide, how to get started on Zoom. A lot more actually, best practices for securing your virtual classroom, for instance, right here, that was the blog post I just already pointed out. And right here, K-12 Academy. So right here, a lot more information is available for you. Oops, is available for you around the educationing over Zoom. And I'm just going to also make sure that we put this one in the chat for you today. All right, as a matter of fact, I'm just sending that out. All right, great. Then also from your portal, you do have an option to attend live trainings or come up here under resources and click on live training from up here. I have seen a few times in the Q&A now, people have been asking, so a lot of attendees have been asking, where can we get more training? Let me point that out to you. We have daily, weekly trainings on almost all of our products. So these trainings occur multiple times a week, some of them even multiple times a day, like our Getting Started session or the Zoom meetings training appears actually a few times a week as well. And again, we do have that Zoom meetings for education training. So if you just like to spend those additional 45 minutes learning more about educating over Zoom or any of the other product types, just come to our registration page for the live training webinars and register, and please join us again. All these trainings are completely, entirely free of charge, so please let me invite you. All right, and that was the additional resources that I had for you right here. And actually, there is one more that I just wanted to point out. We have YouTube videos. Those are those video tutorials that I announced in different languages. And in here, those are different video tutorials, anywhere between 1 and 3 minutes in different languages available to you. And I'm going to make sure once I stop the presentation that I'm going to paste those links to you. All right, so with that, oops. Let's see. Right here. So with that, I'm going to open it for Q&A. So if Raul, if you just want to take some more questions before we then move over to the next part, or before we then open the next pause, maybe.
There are literally like 6,000 questions in here. So if there's any guys, if you guys want to chime in, I'm kind of working the background. If any of you guys see a trend on some of them that you guys might want to touch on, feel free to jump in. There's just tons of questions.
This is Ann Keen. Yes, I'm a couple ones about our Zoom Academy website. So we have opened up the chat lounge there, and there's lounges for whether you're a teacher, you're a school leader, so you can find your different affinity groups. The chat for this webinar is disabled because of the amount of people we have, but we're obviously the Q&A is open, so you can ask questions here. But to chat and keep the conversation going during this webinar and after this webinar is available at the Zoom Academy. And that's the same place that you went to register for this.
Great.
Right,
We'll go ahead and
great.
put the link.
Thank you so much.
I just want to chime in here for just a second. Although chat is disabled, that means the attendees, you guys can't chat to us, but we still could use the chat to give you those useful links that Eleanor was talking about. So you can get them here as well in the chat.
I've got a few.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry, Carrie. I've got a few things to share. We are getting a lot of questions, especially about the mobile app, and if they have their own personal account and the school account or organizational account. You can have multiple or use multiple accounts on a mobile device or even on the desktop client. Just make sure to properly sign out and use the proper credentials for each one, especially on the mobile device. The sign out is within the settings menu. So I believe if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that settings menu, you can sign out and then properly sign in with your personal email if you had been using it for school purposes prior to that. Going back actually to the previous session, we were getting a lot of questions on the report a user option and how that functions. So not to go too far in depth, but if you do use the report feature within the security area, that does send a ticket to the Zoom Trust and Safety team to review. And this feature should be used for egregious things in the meeting, such as people joining, maybe sharing inappropriate content, etc. If this is a school-related issue, a standard disciplinary issue, maybe a student acting out or needing some internal guidance, that should be handled within your internal processes. The report issue is more for platform in terms of service abuse and misuse versus maybe what you may encounter in an everyday class. So I want to make that known. So thank you very much. Carrie, go ahead if you had something.
That's what I was going to ask, actually. So you're good.
The other questions are coming around the certification. And so the each training track, the teacher's training track, the school leader training track, and the IT training track at the end have an assessment. You can take it today or you can take it later. You can even take it if you're doing the live recording. And it's after the assessment that you then get the certification. I'm sorry, it's not a certification, it's a certificate, and you get a badge. So it's only available for these trainings. It's not available for the afternoon or for yesterday. So it's just an assessment for at the end of the training.
All right. Was there?
Good.
I'm not sure. Oh, go ahead. I was just saying I was not sure if there was a break, another quick little break.
Yeah, actually, we had planned for a little break, but I would just leave it up to you. Do you just want to continue, or do you want to give it a 5-minute break?
I'll leave that to Vincent.
Yeah, I say we pull a Dave Brubeck and take 5.
Okay.
All right, good.
All right, so we'll be back in 5 minutes, folks.
Oops, that was the wrong one. Apologies. 1 second, let me fix that. Oh, okay, good. I just had to restart those slides, obviously. Okay, good. So I'm just going to share my screen again, and we're going to have 5 minutes.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're now going to cover the last section of today. And hello again. I'm sorry, it's me. You have to deal with for the next few minutes. Actually, more than a few minutes. So now we're going to talk about some of the other additional things that you have as part of Zoom. Right. So first thing we're going to take a look at is reporting. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions like, well, how do I know how long the student was in the class and or in the session and so forth? So we're going to address that right now for you. All right, so when you log into your Zoom portal, again, you go to zoom.us and sign in. Here on the left-hand side, you're going to see reports. And you're going to have at least a minimum of 2 types of reports here. And that is a usage report and meeting report. The usage report, this is where you're going to be able to see all the meetings that you hosted and some additional information for each of those. If you are on the paid license, of course, and you have polling or registration, which is again specific to those paid licenses, you also have the option for reports on polling and registration. So first, let's take a look at usage. So we're going to click on usage. And for the date range that we see here, you can do a maximum of 1 month, okay, 1 month at a time. We're going to search for that, and we're going to see all the meetings that were hosted. Now, all the reports I can always export as a CSV file. That way I can open them up in Excel and massage that data. If I click on the number of participants, we see here like everything else that we have here is, who was the username, so who hosted, of course, it's going to be you. When did you start the session? When did you end the session? And how long was that session open? But I also have participants. And this here is in blue, which means it's a link. So I can actually click on the number of participants here and see everyone that was in the meeting. And so I'm going to see their name. We have, of course, have it lighter, but you would have their email address, when they joined, when they left, and the total time that they were in the meeting. And again, I can export that. I'm going to have that as a CSV file. And it helps me know basically who was in, who didn't stay long enough, and so forth. Okay. Now, the other reports that we talked about were the meeting reports. So when you click on that, you're going to have your meeting report, and you can choose whether it was you're going to run a registration report or a poll report. Once you select that, you're going to see that your meeting's here, and you're going to want to click on Generate. That's going to go ahead and start producing that report for you, and you'll be able to grab it from your report queue. Okay, so that's all there is that you need to know regarding reports. Now, what the reports look like, okay, this is the registration report. So you're going to see first name, last name, email address, and whatever additional information you had on that registration form for your meetings. For the poll report, if you didn't select anonymous, we mentioned that earlier, you can choose anonymous. But here you'll be able to see, if you didn't select anonymous, again, each user's name and the answer they selected for that particular question. Okay, so it's a great way to kind of do maybe some quick assessments. You just have a poll there, it's like a little pop quiz, and then you can see how each student answered in that polling question. All right, so we're not going to launch the poll here. We're just going to talk about this real quickly to save some time. Which of the following is not an available report? So we just took a look at the registration report and the poll report. So obviously, therefore, the annotation report is a report that just doesn't exist. All right, now let's take a look at nonverbal feedback. Nonverbal feedback is a way for your students to communicate things, but without disrupting the audio of the meeting. Okay, so they're going to have various options. Various options. So they can raise or lower their hand. So that's, I think we can all see the use case there because it's very traditional. You raise your hand if you need to do something or you want to ask a question. But then we have additional nonverbal feedback here. So yes or no. Really good here. Sometimes your pace is a little too fast. Sometimes it's a little too slow. And so your students can say, slow down or go slower or go faster without interrupting. So you can see, you get that visual cue that, oh, okay, I need to slow it down a bit, or let's speed it up. And then when they select more, you're going to have we have it here listed as agree, disagree. I generally call it thumbs up, thumbs down. What I like to call the golf clap. This is the need a break, so basically coffee break. And of course, I am away. Right? So I'm leaving for some reason, so I'm going to go away. As I'm sure a lot of people wish I would. Okay, so now a little more from ASU here on nonverbal feedback.
Thanks, Vincent. And I think you kind of nailed it on the head, showing, all of the teachers who are joining us today, all of those features. Again, just a great way to get those quick temperature sticks. I know earlier I mentioned the polling, which, may take a little longer. And again, using that nonverbal feedback, again, is a great way to help engage the students, to do mini check-ins, right, with the students, making sure that they're understanding the content, checking in on pace. I really like the one where it's, like slow down so the students can communicate with you if you're going too fast in the presentation, allowing, again, that hand raise that we would have in a traditional classroom. Again, I think in terms of breaking up your live lessons, depending upon how long your sessions will be, in a given 45-minute live session, definitely maybe every 5 to 10 minutes, embed those little quick breaks, those check-ins, where students, again, can use those nonverbal features at a given time. So again, if you want to do something a little quicker to get that pulse on your students in the course during your live lesson, again, the nonverbal feedback is a great way to do that. Thanks, Vincent.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, and one other thing that can help with engagement and so forth are the reactions. Okay, right now we have, again, the golf clap and the thumbs up, but with using reactions, this doesn't put that icon next to their name in the participant list. It's actually going to show up on their webcam panel. Okay, so we see here the reactions of the golf claps. And so now all the students can see who's reacting. Right now we have just the two, but I believe we are looking at expanding that to some additional, basically, emojis or additional reactions. And now let's have some more information from ASU about your video or your webcam.
Yeah, so before I talk a little bit about kind of the practical pieces of video, we want to just talk a little about why being on video, and it's part of what helps us establish that personal connection, and trying to be on video as much as you can establishes this culture of it's normal to be on video. We can all be on video. We can see each other. We can talk together, and really just have that connection. We can't, for the most part, I mean, I know you'll have to follow your school's requirements, but you can't require a student to have their video on, but having yours on over time can help them open up and want to be on video more. And you can do fun things like put them in teams and they all like get a team color that can be their virtual background, different things that might incentivize them to turn it on, put up a virtual background that matches the theme of Spirit Week, or different things that can help students get there. Also, if they're self-conscious about their own background, like we said at the beginning, the virtual background can help reduce some of that. But then thinking about yourself. So if you're going to be on camera a whole lot, you want to think about, can people see you? If your camera's right about at eye level, that helps you talk more directly to your students and help them feel that eye contact and that personal connection. Thinking about lighting, trying to have the light in front of you, not behind you. If you have a window near your desk, it actually, depending on what's behind it, sometimes makes more sense to face the window than to have the window behind you, because then you're not backlit, you have the light on your face. And the extent to which it's possible having a quiet area. I know we're all living in a time when that can be a challenge, but doing what you can to find that quiet area to work. And if you can't find a background that works for you, you can also have that virtual background set up. And then just thinking about what it takes from students and teachers and everyone to be on camera and together, and think about that as you're planning your live lesson time. Are you all on camera looking at each other for an hour straight? Maybe that's too much time and you want to break it up, and that's where you use breakout rooms or release them for a little bit to do a playlist or go make a Flipgrid video. Just thinking about, how am I using this time to make sure I'm breaking it up for students?
Great, thanks, Craig. So real quickly, we're going to start wrapping things up here. Just want to mention again, support.zoom.us, wonderful resource. As Eleanor pointed out earlier, you can search for keywords. So, if you're in your settings and you're like, I have no idea what this is, not a problem. Just get those keywords, type them into the search, and you're going to find all the support articles that we have on that particular topic. And again, we have our video tutorials, quick start guides. And if you scroll a little lower on the support page, you'll also be able to browse by topic. So, I want to learn more about Zoom Phone, or I want to learn more about Zoom Rooms. We'll have the buttons there that you can select to dive deeper into that particular topic. And then lastly, as we wrap up here, tips and best practices. So before the meeting, you want to test your audio and video. Now, one of the easiest things to do is just go ahead, go to your Zoom software, and just launch a meeting. Okay. You'll be able to use the test speaker and microphone that's in there, so you can hear back your audio. You can take a look at your video. As you just mentioned, how's your lighting? Does my virtual background look okay? Have the content that you want to share ready in advance. Always good to have that. For example, for today, I had all my PowerPoints up, ready to go, and then I can just change what I'm sharing. Close applications with pop-ups. So that I mentioned that earlier. If you have Outlook, you get that little pop-up and you're sharing your desktop, everyone's going to see what that email is, or at least the little preview window. So best not to use applications that have pop-ups. But also share the specific application. Don't share your desktop if you don't have to. When you're hosting the meeting, obviously mute your microphone if others are presenting and speaking. That's just common courtesy, good meeting etiquette. Using the gallery view for collaborative meetings. That way you can see everyone, you can see their facial reactions. That's why cameras are really important when we're doing all these video meetings, because a lot of communication is indeed visual. Share your screen, as we just mentioned, share the specific application. Simply use new share so you can make a more seamless transition, and use the annotation tools to grab and direct attention, but also allow for that interaction, because your students will be able to annotate along with you. And as we just talked about, turn your camera on and make sure it is at eye level. If you're using a laptop, consider getting an external webcam, or at least be very, very cautious as to the angle of the laptop lid. Right, because if you have it on your desk and you have it pointed up at, so you can see the screen, well, now the webcam is looking up your nose. Probably not the best angle for you. So prop up your laptop, get an external keyboard, or get an external webcam. And again, make eye contact. So use that webcam as much as possible. I'm obviously looking in other directions because I have multiple monitors here, but you want to have basically looking at your webcam as you're presenting, as you're talking. So it has that much more natural communication feel. And I'll just say it one more time. If you can, use a headset. And that is a wrap. We did go a little bit over, but fortunately not too much. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for attending this track today. I don't know if we want to take a couple of questions here in like the last minute, and then I believe there's a link we need posted. Josh mentioned that. So Josh, if you could post that link to I believe it's an assessment, that would be outstanding. Do we want to, Raul, are you seeing any big?
There's thousands of questions, but I don't know if there's any.
Over 7,000.
I know we're on time. We're already past the time, but is there anything you guys want to maybe touch on real quick before we close it out? Maybe anything major, or anything you guys want to close out in general?
The one thing I'll say that, and Eleanor also pointed this out earlier, this was a long session today. We covered a lot of topics, but if you go to zoom.us/live training, we have our meetings training, our webinar training, and admin trainings and so forth. Getting started meetings and webinar happens multiple times per week. So if you just want to, after a couple of weeks, you want a refresher, sign up for one of those trainings, get your questions answered, because I'm pretty sure in those trainings, we won't have over 7,000 questions.
Correct. All right. Carrie, Matt, anybody else anything you guys want to close it out with? All right.
I think it's just a great idea for everyone to bookmark support.zoom.us. You'll find a plethora of information as we showed today. Great spot.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, having said that, I guess let's go ahead and close it out. Do want to thank everyone for joining, and of course, all the team for presenting, and others that were in the background helping answer some questions here. Keep your eye out. I believe you're going to also get a copy of some of these recordings in case you weren't able to join some of the other sessions. And of course, the assessment link is in the chat panel. I believe if you actually go back to the website, you can actually log in and kind of get to it from there. I'm sure you'll receive an email and some follow-up info with that. But having said that, thanks for joining. Make sure you stay safe, and of course, make sure you stay connected as well. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.